Hey, it's Drybear. We're getting some more drama this week covering Black Myth Wukong and, of course, some of the more political debates that are happening all across the world. So we're going to dive in today on that topic. And again, this is meant as discussion, so be sure to point out the people that only read the title but didn't actually watch the video for the discussion itself. So the discussion begins with this post from a someone in China. This is, I have to kind of preface this because there's obviously some mistranslations for one, but also some unqualified or unproven information. So let's start with the impetus for this, and we'll follow the trail together so we can see where everything is going. So this is the Google translated version of this post in Chinese. I've been to China. I don't speak Chinese. I can't read Chinese. So this is the translated version of that. So what this person is positing is that the reason why Black Myth Wukong has been deeply attacked over the last couple months, and we'll get into that as well, and slandered by so-called sexism from the first promotional video to now is essentially because they have refused guidance from overseas political correctness related coaching teams and paid coaching fees starting in the millions of dollars. So what they're saying, and what started this whole discussion, was that this person is saying that they have insider information that the game science team that's developing Black Myth Wukong, a very heavily anticipated Souls-like game releasing on August 20th, has been refusing repeated requests and badgers for payment to have a political correctness like referral and consulting session over the game to make sure that it's a little bit more encompassing and more correct for as many more genders, ethnicities, sexual orientations, things like that. So because they've been refusing those requests for coaching, they've actually just been badgered because of that. And in fact, there are many such teams in Europe and the United States, and they have profoundly interfered with the works of Assassin's Creed series, Dying Light 2, God of War, etc., which, there's a whole question of how accurate that actually is. A series of notorious ugly heroines, which is subjective, were the direct result of interference from the politically correct leadership team, which is a big part of that as well. The game science team refused to communicate with them, refused to let them interfere, and most importantly, refused to pay the starting guidance fee of at least $7 million US. So they're saying that Sweet Baby Inc. had been pestering an overseas company, a development team that's making Black Myth Wukong, to pay them potentially multi-million dollars, up to $7 million, if this number is remotely accurate, to consult on their game and help them be a little bit more politically correct. This has also directly led to each rejected team to manipulate the media. Some were blinded by money or themselves, the main reason why they've lost interest. The samplest example is one of IGN's main contributors, a woman named Rebecca Valentine, which we'll see a post of hers in just a second, a member of certain political correctness guidance teams like Sweet Baby, and they're also so crazy about criticizing just for money. So, and this spawned from another conversation where Hideo Kojima, Kojimbo, had talked about Black Myth Wukong on X.com. He was basically talking about the fact that he is really excited about Black Myth Wukong, that the game looks good, the visuals are very stunning, and the game is very exciting overall. And the response is, which we're not going to dive into this on Twitter or X.com because I don't think it's super valuable, but there is actually a ton of discussion right now on X.com going over this response, this post, and this topic in general, saying that, anyone who's supporting Black Myth Wukong is supporting a game studio with fervent history of sexism and hatred, and it's disappointing. It's kind of the same thing we saw with Stellar Blade and the studio that does that, Shift Up. Then we saw it a ton with Hogwarts Legacy, was one of the biggest ones in relation to J.K. Rowling over Harry Potter as well. So this was the first impetus of this, is the discussion coming from X.com, and this post from someone in China claiming that the game science studio has been pestered constantly for ridiculous amounts of money for Sweet Baby to help consult on their game to make it a little bit more friendly for more modern views and takes on sexual orientation and things like that. Now, I did some digging on Rebecca Valentine specifically because she was mentioned by this person in China, but also just the history of Black Myth Wukong, because I'm not really someone who keeps up with drama, the drama pulse, only when it kind of crosses my desk or, kind of coincides with something I'm interested in. And in this case, there is actually an article by Rebecca that was posted in November of last year. And the title is How Black Myth Wukong Developers' History of Sexism is Complicating Its Journey to the West. And to be fair, there are actually some things in here that you can reference from the developers that work at Game Science that are concerning. So there's definitely, there's always going to be that. No matter what studio you have, there's going to be private and personal, postings and opinions of the people that work there that are a little bit, they're not very clear or not as, open-minded to what the world actually is. But this is the article, and the author here is actually trying to push the idea that Black Myth Wukong is one of those studios, and we've had tons of this with Blizzard Entertainment, Riot Games. I think there is a separate issue on awareness to certain things and attacking people over those topics, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. She says that the studio has a whole bunch of focus on sexism and racism and hatred toward female players, notably negative reputation among people inside of China and in the games industry. They have high expectations for their games, but they shouldn't get that kind of attention because of the practices and presentations for their characters. Now, there are some mistranslations here as well. So some very unfair situations. So this is one of the posts from the studio director, the CEO of the studio. And what the post is, from those who have actually, not used Google Translate, but actually translated the message, is that he's mentioned that the response to the Black Myth Wukong trailer back in August was not great, that some people had criticisms over the art style and criticisms over the way it looks. And the Google Translate for some of this is very odd and sounds really weird. So for example, the first one is, I want to expand my circle and hire more people, get licked until I can't, something sexual. So that's just like the way it got translated, but that's not what he actually meant. There are other things here about, like for example, an undynamic body of water. And there's also it is my honor to provide you with some comfort for the lower half of your body. Again, this is just a mistranslation. He's just talking about the fur on the monkey and the body proportions of the characters. Now, I think it's totally fair and viable to say that you don't like the proportions or the representations of the characters that are shown in Black Myth Wukong. This is a big topic that we're seeing all over the place right now, going across the industry. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges that you end up seeing. So there's a question right now is, how credible is this post here? Are they actually being extorted for $7 million and being asked to pay these things? We do have plenty of proof of many companies, nonprofits and organizations trying to help make the gaming industry a little bit more aware of what people are suffering with and what their perspectives are. And in some cases that can be very positive. In some cases that can be very destructive. But we do also have some very interesting situations around Sweet Baby that is a little bit more polarizing. So I'm playing this. This is a clip from Kim Belair from Sweet Baby going over strategies for how to help involve people in this process of getting people to pay attention to their efforts.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
So that's the post, right? And everything can be taken out of context, but I think this shows the intensity with which they're chasing after these ideas, is that they want people to help get people on board with the movement and are doing so in ways that might be destructive. And this was the same exact thing with Harry Potter and Hogwarts Legacy. And honestly, like this happens a lot where there is an actual real cause, right? There's a good reason to argue for something, a good reason to fight for something. And I am like very astutely aware of how blind and ignorant people can be. As human beings, we're flawed. We're always going to be unaware of things, right? And so there is always a good reason to help people be aware of what's going on, right? Because we can get caught up in our own fears and anxieties and worries and wishes and not realize what we're doing to other people. So making people aware of, equality between things that people can't control, right? Their religious choices, spiritual choices, racial birth, like their ethnicity, where they come from, and their biology and what they're born with in general. But I think that there is a very clear line that doesn't get respected much at all, and it's actually seems to be getting worse every day. And that line is going from making people aware and fighting for justice to attacking people and villainizing people because they don't believe what you believe. And as soon as you cross that line, that's when things start to fall apart. A good example of this is when I was in college and I was walking across the college campus. I had a person who was an advocate for a environmental campaign come up to me and say, "You're destroying the planet." She screamed it at me. And my immediate response was like, it was defensive, it was anger, it was confusion, like, why are you walking up to a random person and shouting at them and claiming that they're doing something horrible instead of trying to have a discussion, right? So I think that's kind of where we're getting to right now, where we have a lot of situations where people are attacking other people, saying that you can't support, like you can't enjoy Black Myth Wukong because some of the people, or maybe most of the people at the studio, are not behaving in a way that they believe is to be just. And if that GDC presentation is to be believed and to be respected, then we know that their methods are to go around to companies to try and change things for the better, at least in their eyes, but are doing so in a very aggressive and very violent way, to the point where they're trying to ask for large sums of money and then actually weaponizing media outlets and discussions online to trying to attack these people. And this happened with Hogwarts Legacy as well. There were streamers, content creators, VTubers that would just like they just play games. Like their job is to stream and entertain, and they play games, and they wanted to play Hogwarts Legacy. And some of them were attacked so aggressively over playing Hogwarts Legacy that they ended up, not streaming for a couple days. They got depressed because they were attacked so much, right? So I think there needs to be that separation of raising awareness for something that's just and actually has good cause and good reason, without crossing into the territory of villainizing people who might just be unaware, or attacking people that have nothing to do with what you're going after. And I think as soon as you cross that line, where you get into the point where you start telling people exactly how to live, attacking them, requesting large amounts of money from them, that's when the justice part of this starts to fall apart. So where do you land? Where do you sit on this whole concept? Where do you believe things are happening? Just some of the personal posts from the developers at Game Science, talking about some attraction level things, some misgendering things, some possibly racist things, some toxic things, some rhetoric choices that might be really bad, and we know the impact of this from many documented cases of of people like showing their ignorance in certain areas. But there definitely is a question of how far this should go, and how do we raise awareness to things without making it a violent destruction of people, right? Like, should we be able to weaponize public perception to the point where someone who's making a game about a 16th century story, myth, legend from a different country in a different language, representing that myth and that legend in their own way, should not make any money, and their studio should fail because of the presentation of that product as well? So yeah, there's a big discussion on that. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.